Hi, what's up? My name is Jules, and this is my first official YouTube video on this channel specifically. I guess I'll just say right now that my other YouTube channel is it's Pico Pico ASMR. I am an ASMR artist. I've been watching ASMR since 2014, 2015, whatever. Around there. So go check out my other channel, I guess, if you want to see that. Anyways, I figured I should start every video with "What's up? My name is Jules." Because, that's my name and that's also my YouTube name on this channel. So, yeah, also if I'm not looking directly into the camera the whole time, I can't do that. Uh I have a problem with eye contact and looking directly at the camera it feels kind of like eye contact. Anyways, moving on with all of that word vomit, let me just get into the things. Also, yes, my name is Jules. Spell it how you like. I spell it Jules, in the most formal way possible, but around friends or non-casually, it's Juuls. Not sponsored. I've actually never used a jewel in my life. So, yes, okay. I wanted to start a storytime channel, other things channel. Wow. I thought this would be easier, but it's not actually. It's not easy at all. It's kind of hard. I'm kind of nervous. I'm just talking to myself in my room. So, you know, don't forget to drink water. I don't really, have that much left in here, but I'm just going to start right off with a jump with one of the craziest stories in my current life. I have a lot though, so that's why I wanted to start this story time channel. Welcome back, Tana Mongoose. That's yeah. Except without you know, saying the words you're not supposed to say. Right? Okay. Sorry. Moving on. So let me preface this. I'm gonna have some crazy all caps title because, just in remembrance of early Tana Monjo content, I'm going to be doing it like that. So I'm going to be talking about the first time that I did LSD in 2020. I was 18 with my first boyfriend, and I just really wanted to try it, so I bought some off of the street. Totally safe. Didn't test it. I'm still alive. Yay, no fent. So, yeah, let's go ahead and start at the very beginning. I think I need to do everything in chronological order because I think I would get very discombobulated if I didn't do that. So, start at the beginning, right? I'm like, hey, I want to try LSD. And he's like, okay, I know someone I can buy it off of. So we meet up with this random girl at my job, and she just gives us this aluminum foil square, and there's two paper tabs in there, okay? And that was terrifying. First of all, that was my first time buying a substance like that one, okay? I was buying and selling a lot of weed. Can I say that word? Leaf. Yeah, I was buying and selling a lot of leaf at that time, and that wasn't really scary to me, but buying LSD for some reason was very terrifying. Um, so yeah, so we went ahead, bought it, great, did the thing. We plan a trip. I'm making a lot of money at that time, and I mean, just absolute lots of money. I mean, I was only making $10 an hour at my job, but I was working about 60 hours a week most weeks because I was going to different locations and covering for people, whatever. I was doing that, and I was selling Leaf, and I was door dashing. So do the math. Do just just ruminate on that. You could probably guess around how much money I was making. All right. Okay. So all of this is me and my money. So and not my stupid ex-boyfriend's money. So I'm like, okay, let's book a trip. Let's do LSD. Like, let's do all of these things. So I book a little Airbnb in South Carolina somewhere. I don't know. I just don't want to be too specific. I Airbnb in South Carolina, and we're like, fuck it. We're going on this trip. Took the time off of work. I was excited. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. I was excited. I was like, the LSD seems so cool. I was watching that one psychedelic documentary thing that came out on Netflix at around that time in 2020 with the one where like Flea is talking about his experience on like peyote, and then the dude that used to travel around the world and eat food, he was talking about his experience on LSD, and that show just really inspired me, and I just really wanted to try it. I was like, wow, like their stories sound so cool, right? Even though a lot of the stories were not cool, but I still want to try it. So, moving on, fast forward, boom, the trip happening. Road trip to South Carolina. So we are driving, and I get really sleepy, and I stop at a gas station. I'm like, okay, ex-boyfriend, can you take the wheel? I want to take a little nap, and then I'll take over for the rest of the ride. And it's Georgia. I don't know if any of y'all have driven in Georgia, especially to get to other states. But the cops, they're there. Let me tell you, they're there. They exist. And well, I wake up to him like shaking me and freaking out and being and saying, hey, we're getting pulled over. And I said, why the actual fuck are we getting pulled over? I told you not to speed in Georgia. So is it a different reason? And he said, no, sorry, I was speeding. I was just really excited to get to the Airbnb. I don't care. I literally told you if we enter Georgia, don't speed in my car. So we get pulled over by a ranger. A ranger. Of course, the best one to get pulled over by, right? And, he walks up, blah, 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 and, gives my boyfriend the ticket. Luckily, the ticket is not in my name or anything since my boyfriend was driving the car and I added him as a driver to my insurance, whatever. It didn't affect me at all, which was great. But I was still freaking out, obviously. And then, we get to the point of the conversation with the police officer where they ask if there's any drugs or paraphernalia in the car, and I'm just thinking, and I'm the one talking to the officer, by the way. My boyfriend was yeah, wasn't able to. I've talked to many cops at that point in my life anyway, so it was just like, yeah. I was like, no, officer, of course, no drug and paraphernalia. We're just going on a little trip to South Carolina. Got an Airbnb, blah, 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 just trying to explain the situation. He's like, oh, okay, good. Rights ticket off. We're gone, right? The whole time I was talking to him, I was looking at the center console because that's where the foil of LSD was. And I was like, yep, of course, no drugs or paraphernalia. Why would I ever do that? But whatever. Okay, so we get to the Airbnb. I have a lot of trouble getting into the Airbnb because this is the first time in my life, actually, that I've ever gotten one. And I wasn't really sure how the digital lock system worked, and I was trying to contact the person, they weren't answering, whatever. We eventually get in there. Great. So we're chilling there for a bit, just enjoying the Airbnb, like watching. We were watching Dave Chappelle, and honestly, having a good time for what it was worth. And then we went back to the bedroom, and I get a message from my father. Rest in peace, sorry. I'm just gonna preface that. He died in 2022. Anyways, my father, he messages me, calls me, and he's like, this whole situation is just really off to me. Why are you in an Airbnb with this guy that I don't like at all? And, send me pictures. He was like, send me pictures of you, where you are, send me the bedroom, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So I, like, do that. And, like, my dad's still freaking out. It's like, I really don't trust this. He was right to not trust it, but whatever. Sorry, Dad. So then we're just on the bed. I put on that psychedelic show or limited series or a documentary, whatever. I put the same one that I was watching before, just restarted it on the TV in there. And we're just watching it, and then I was like, should we drop it? Should we do the acid? Because I'm just like, this is what we came here for, so let me just do it. So he was like, well, with the paper tabs, you should just keep it on your tongue and then swallow it. I was like, all right, I mean, that's what I do. Then I do that, okay? And at first, I obviously didn't really feel anything. Then it started to slowly kick in. And the psychedelic show movie thing was kind of starting to freak me out a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, it's just the come up. I'm just going to switch it to something that I like, something that I'm familiar with. So I switched it to The Office. And then things just started amping up very, very, very quickly. And then, I'm watching The Office, and all of a sudden, The Office just doesn't look like The Office anymore. And it doesn't sound like The Office anymore. I'm looking at the TV screen. All the faces were morphing and mixing together in a weird way. They all looked like aliens to me, and I was freaking out. And I said, okay, we gotta turn the TV off. So we turned off the TV, and then I said, okay, I need to calm down. I'm just gonna get my journal. Got my journal, started writing. I actually have the journal entry. Okay, I don't know where my journal is, but the journal entry, I wasn't able to write for very long because the trip started violently, basically. I mean, it started, at first I was like, oh, this isn't bad, right? But then I was barely able to write or look down at the journal. I only wrote a small excerpt saying, I'm getting this really weird feeling right now. I don't like this or whatever. And then I was writing, the only thing that I have in this world is my best friend, who is now my ex-best friend. I can talk about that another time. And her, whatever. I was like, she's the only one keeping me here. I wrote that. And after I couldn't write anymore, I started just reading my old journal entries. And I read the first one and how I had a crush on one of my friends that were in my class or whatever, and I was just reading it, and that kind of helped ground me for like a second, not really long. So I put the journal down, and then at that point I was like, okay, for some reason, can't keep my clothes on. I don't know why. Having my clothes on just feels really uncomfortable right now. So I proceed to take them all off, as one does when they're tripping, balls, and they don't want to wear, they just don't feel comfortable in their clothes anymore, so take them off. And at this point, I felt good at that point. And I was in a little good area. I was in some good peak right there. I was like, wow, like this is the best thing ever. I love everyone. I love not having my clothes on, apparently. And it's just kind of like dancing around this 2-story little apartment. It was an apartment. I was at a complex. And I was just being hella loud, just being like, this is awesome, whatever, walking around, stuff. And the next thing I do, which is totally what you should do, the next thing I do, and I'm like, well, I am going to sit on the, hello. I am going to sit on the couch and eat Reese's Puffs because I wanted to try eating on it, because I heard from the documentaries that eating on it is weird. So, like, let me try to eat some things, and I had Reese's Puffs. So I sat on the couch, had my boyfriend put on the Ninjago television show. The original Ninjago television show. I don't know if there's another version, or it was just the one that was out. Episode 1, Season 1. Ninjago had that on. Was eating the Reese's Puffs. And I specifically remembered that I hated the way that it tasted. I was like, these are the worst Reese's Puffs I've had in the world. I don't want to eat food anymore on this. So I just handed the bowl to my boyfriend. I'm like, I don't want to eat this anymore. So, I'm done with that. And the next thing I do is I don't know, okay, my memory of this is going to be a little difficult, as you can see in the near future of this story. I'm going to say the next part was me going to the bathroom to throw up the Reese's Puffs that I just ate, because that did not sit well with me at all. Eating on psychedelics, not necessarily, in my opinion, the best thing to do. I've done that, and I've done germs, and I've done K. Not really psychedelic, but every time I've eaten on something like that, it hasn't gone well. So I was trying to throw up, and I think I did. And then, of course, I did what they said not to do and to do. Because in the documentary, they're like, whatever you do, don't look in a mirror, right? Of course, I'm in the bathroom. I have to look at myself in the mirror. Duh. So I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, whoa. I am not real. This is not me. I'm just a bunch of fractals. I was at that point where I was seeing heavy, heavy fractals. And my whole face and body just looked compiled of it. And, in the mirror, everything was just twisting and turning and altering. I didn't really see myself. I was just seeing a beautiful woman, but, I just didn't really look like myself. I was like, wow, who is that? Who am I looking at right now? Okay, it's me having some serious derealization. So, I leave the bathroom after being fascinated in the mirror for who knows how long. Then I remember saying, oh, I don't think the come up is going well for me, to my ex-boyfriend, and he says, oh, wait, let's listen to this music, this weird ass music that I don't know if it wasn't really tribal music. It was kind of music that was made for LSD. He's like, oh, my best friend, he listens to this, and it helps ground him in his trip. So I start listening to this music, and it starts freaking me out even more, and I'm trying to close my eyes and listen to it, right? And as I close my eyes, I just see just images of just women and people, mainly women drumming, and I see like safari-esque animals everywhere. And I said, okay, we gotta turn this music off. I can't do this or go back to the couch. Then I I don't know what I was doing. I think I was trying to like text people that I loved them and I was very grateful for them or whatever. And my childhood best friend called me and I was deep into it at this point. And I don't even remember what I was saying. I might have been asking her for help. I might have just kept repeating that I loved her a bunch of times. Um, I think it was something along the lines of that. And I remember calling the best friend that I was writing about in my journal entry and kind of saying the same things. And I called the guy that I had the crush on in high school. And yeah, he's just kind of on the phone, like, what the freak is going on? What are you calling me? And I told him that I loved him and that, like, it's just stuff like that. Hello, what? Are you. After all the phone calls were done, I am starting to lose control of everything, my thoughts and my body. And the first thing that I can remember is just really, really starting to freak out. I remember, ooh, this is tough because I don't know the series of these events, so I'm just going to try to explain them. I just remember being on the couch and freaking out, and I get to a point where I lose full control of my body, okay? And I think I'm just laying on the floor at this point, and I think the first thing that I can remember happening is me being transported into someone else's life. I was a man, and I was in first person. Okay, I wasn't looking from a different perspective, kind of like astral projection. It wasn't like that. I was him. Kind of how people say on DMT they lived a life. But for me, I lived this man's life very briefly. I was sitting on a living room couch with warm lighting and the TV was on, and I'm guessing this guy's girlfriend or wife or whatever was to the left of him, and me as him look over to the left of her, and she's kind of says, "Hey, is everything okay? You look really weird. Is everything okay?" And I'm like, and then I just look forward, look at the TV, and then suck back into the reality I was in. Then I am starting to have visions of things. I look over at this lamp, just a standing lamp that is there. And my boyfriend at the time was kind of near the lamp. And I remember looking at him and getting a vision of me getting old. I don't know if it was necessarily with him, but I was just like with an old man. It's definitely not with him. Obviously, now said ex-boyfriend a million times. So I see that vision, and I think that I'm already old. I think that I'm already the old version of myself, and then I'm freaking out. I'm like, I don't want to die yet. I didn't actually live my life. And then I at this point, everything went black. After that, darkness. Just complete darkness. My eyes, I don't know if they were closed. They might have still been open. I don't know. darkness, just in that complete darkness state, I was in a void. A void like I was in space, the universe, but no stars, no nothing, just darkness and silence. And I am hearing, which I, over the years, am calling the collective. I don't know if you know about spiritual stuff. I don't remember if this is Hindu. I think it's Hindu. But the concept of a collective is the consciousness of everyone is one kind of thing. Whatever. I heard that speaking to me, okay? And it was saying some things along the line of, it's not your time. You cannot die. You're not allowed to die. You are going to live out your entire life and you're going to get old. And they were saying, your father is going to die. And I just start sobbing. And I think my dad is the last person that I want to lose right now or ever, Sorry. He was the closest person in my life. So I'm like, no, he cannot die. Like, what? Like, don't tell me that he's going to die, right? And I start freaking out and I just start screaming his name, like with my actual body, not in the trip state. My actual self was just screaming my dad. I was like, Dad, I was like, please, like, don't die, whatever. And then my ex-boyfriend calls my dad from my phone, and I come back to reality, and my dad is on the phone, and he's saying, what the freak is going on? Are you okay? And I kept just, like, screaming and crying and saying, like, please, like, don't die, like, please. And he's on the phone saying, there's nothing to worry about. I'm here. Everything's okay. But what the actual hell is going on? And I'm not able to conceivably talk. I was just hysterical. And after that, I completely go bonkers. I lose full control of my body. I know I said that before, but my body was moving on its own. All of the things that are happening up to this point, I didn't control any of it. After the premonition or whatever told me that I would lose my father, I reasonably start crashing out, and the trip was terrible, so it was adding to the crash out. So let me list the things that start happening during the crash out. I pick up those really, really big circular ottomans that are usually in the middle of the living room so like people can put their feet on? I lift the entire thing, throw it. Then I go to the kitchen. I start taking glasses and whatever out of the cabinets and I just start throwing them. Glass. I broke a few. Glass everywhere. My ex-boyfriend was trying to get me out of the kitchen. I just broke glass. Go into the living room. I pick up a Roku remote. Or the TV remote. I don't know if it was a Roku. Pick it up. Throw it against the wall. It shattered. I don't know how hard I threw it, but I threw it hard enough for the actual remote to just shatter like glass. And it was really freaky. And after that, obviously, I'm going insane. And let me just preface this. I don't know when, but it happened. My ex-boyfriend, he called the cops on me because this whole time after I threw the remote and everything, he was trying to restrain me. I was so strong, mind you, not very long before that, I was weightlifting a lot. I was benching, I had abs, I was very toned, very strong, definitely stronger than him. He was just a short dude that never worked out, so I was definitely stronger than him. He could not restrain me. And so his. Also, by the way, he's tripping this entire time too. He took it with me. So his brain was like, oh, well, I need to call the cops. I don't know what else to do, right? And I'm assuming maybe my dad had a part in that. I'm not sure, but my dad hated the cops. But he also loved them because, he was conservative. He loved them in the conservative way, but he never wanted them to get involved in anything, I mean. But he might have had a part of it. I don't know, I was going ballistic. So, yeah, so the cops, unbeknownst to me, were on the way. And the entire time while they're on the way, my ex-boyfriend is trying to restrain me. He was trying to hold me down onto the couch. He was trying to bear hug me. Wasn't working. Kept getting out. And I was fighting him off, at that point. And there was a little moment where I was sitting on the couch and I lost all of my actual surroundings of vision. And I was getting visions of my future. Again. Not just me being old. It was me, and I had long blonde hair, which I had long blonde hair at the time. So my visions were just my current self. And my future vision was... It was actually pretty cool. My future vision was me with long blonde hair. I was the lead singer and guitarist of a band, which was freaking hilarious because I am joining like 2 bands as of recently. So, but unfortunately it's going to be very short-lived because I'm going to be moving to a different state in January. I'm talking about current life. So, and yeah, I just had that little vision of me living my dreams and having that prior collective message that I can't die, and they showed me getting old. Right? So I was chill, and then the police show up, I think my ex-boyfriend just let them in, and I don't know, because, okay, there was a point, I don't know if my ex-boyfriend did it, or if it was me, but I said that I took all my clothes off right at a point. Well, I guess I had all of my clothes on now. I guess he maybe forced to put the clothes on me before the cops came. Because I was wearing clothes, and I'll explain why I know I was wearing clothes at this point. I don't know how. Maybe it was the time I blacked out and, was in the void. I don't know. The cops come. There were about 3 or 4 cops that came into the apartment, and there were also EMTs. And at first, there was one cop, and I was obviously trying to run away from them. I hated cops. And unfortunately for me, they also all looked like aliens because I don't know, for those who have done LSD, every time I've done it, which is only twice, I look at people and it looks like their eyes are huge. Super huge and bulging out and round-ish and just completely black, kind of like they have sclera contacts in. That's what all the cops looked like for me, right? So I see them all walk in, and I think I'm being abducted. I think I'm being abducted by aliens. And I kept screaming at the cops that they were aliens, and one of them tried restraining me because I'm assuming they were trying to cuff me. And the first male cop that restrained me failed. I don't know if it was the fact that I was already toned and also had a million miles of adrenaline running through my system that I broke out of a bigger cop's, hold. So I break out of his hold and I start sprinting, and then two cops, I believe, run after me, and they don't tackle me necessarily, but they got me. And they kept repeating over and over and over, what is she on? Blah, blah, blah. My boyfriend's, he's just like, LSD. And they were like, can you tell us where it's from? And they kept asking me where it's from. I'm like, dude, I just think y'all are aliens. Like, what the freak? Why are you asking me questions? And then I somehow remember hearing him say that he bought it from someone on the street. And they asked for the contact info. So at this point, after they didn't really handcuff me, I don't think. They might have handcuffed me. I think they handcuffed me. I don't know, but I eventually got on a gurney into an ambulance, and I was handcuffed to the gurney. Left arm handcuffed, right arm handcuffed onto the gurney. And I remember them wheeling the gurney out to the ambulance, and the ambulance is just, sitting out there with the lights on, and I look around, and I swear every single person that lived in that apartment complex was standing outside. They were all standing outside. All of them. I bet it was all of them. There were so many people outside. It was as many people you would see at a popular concert. There's just people freaking everywhere, and they were all looking at me, and obviously I was still tripping, so they all just looked alien, bug-eyed, staring at me. And that was really freaking me out, and I think definitely made my bad trip worse. Get wheeled into the ambulance, they shut the doors, and I'm pretty sure I started doing this right when I got handcuffed, but since both of my arms were like that on the gurney, right, and I was handcuffed, not strapped, which they should have done, but I was handcuffed to it, and I was twisting both of my arms like this the entire time I was handcuffed. I don't really remember if it left anything, but I just remember it hurting really bad. Like, my wrists were on fire. And I remember, I love EMTs, by the way. I have so much respect. I mean, I have respect for officers too, but they did kind of treat me like crap. Sorry. But the people in the ambulance, the EMTs, whatever, they were so nice to me. I remember one of them repeating that everything's gonna be okay to me. And that, everything would work out, but at that point, I wasn't listening. I was still actively peaking. And at that point, I was not having good visions. I had another reiteration of my future of me being a pop star, and then it got bad. And then it was a vision of, I don't want to say this one's a vision, but I think it was a paranoia. I was laying in a gurney, and my mind was trying to convince me that I was the only person. And not that I was the only person, but that everything in my world, in my life, wasn't real, and that it was all an illusion, or a hallucination, and that all of the things that were happening to me were just made up by my mind, and that really, really, really freaked me out. I don't remember the transportation to the hospital very well. I just remember them putting me into a hospital room, onto a hospital bed. They they still had me handcuffed to the hospital bed. I wasn't strapped. They still didn't strap me down. I was still twisting my wrist, by the way. And in the hospital, I know I was screaming. I know I was still yelling at everyone, and I was still saying people were aliens. And I remember a lot of people being in that room, but I'm assuming there has to be a lot of people in that room, right? You had the cops, you had the EMTs, then you had all the people at the hospital, you had the doctor on the floor, you had the nurses, and they were all looking at me again with those black bug eyes, and I was really freaking out, and I said, "Stop freaking looking at me." Of course, they didn't stop looking at me, and I just saw myself get old in that hospital bed. And as I just got old in that hospital bed, my brain was telling me that I was still there. That I just was always in a hospital. I don't know, that I just got old and I'm still stuck on a hospital bed. And that really freaked me out. And then I remember them cutting off my clothes because I was wearing a long sleeve shirt, I believe, and pants. I lost both of those things. I remember them putting the IVs in, and good night. Just good night, guys. I don't know if y'all heard of the term booty juice, but I definitely got booty juiced through the IV. And that's, when a person is going ballistic, usually in a psych unit, they give them a sedative through the bosom, not the bosom, the gluteus maximus, and they just instantly fall asleep. And yeah, that was the end of the trip. Thank goodness. Pretty sure they gave me Ativan, a lot of Ativan. And behind the scenes, let me say what was happening behind the scenes while this was all happening to me. My ex-boyfriend at the time he said that he was tripping and peeking, and he just walked to the hospital that I was being transported to, and he told me this like I wanted to hear it. He told me that he was having the time of his life, that he was enjoying his trip to the max while walking to the hospital. He just said the trip was amazing. Why would you say that? You're the one that called the cops on me. I'm having the worst experience of my life. And yeah, so that was happening. And then behind the scenes, my dad talked. Dude, I love my dad, but he talked to the chief of police, and the chief of police gave him two options, right? They said, we can put her in jail because that's where she technically belongs. I resisted arrest. I resisted officer restraint. I ran away from the officers, and I got out of that one officer's grip. And the chief was saying to my dad, this is obviously a crime. And she is on a type 1 substance. She's on one of the most illegal substances here, in the US, pretty much. And my dad, and then they said the second option was me, I'm pretty sure, getting Baker acted. And then my dad said, yeah, a Baker actor, I don't want her to go to jail, right? So I basically just got let off on insanity. So yeah, so I wake up and I think I slept for, what did they say, 14 hours, because they gave me a lot of sedative. I wake up and the first thing they say to me is, you have a telehealth appointment with a psychiatrist. He's going to be on the TV. Okay. I'm groggy as frick. I'm not processing anything right now. I'm just okay. I'm just gonna talk to the psychiatrist on this TV in the hospital bedroom. I'm guessing that I was in the psych unit in the hospital, right? And they had me talk to the psychiatrist. And he was asking me questions, saying, do I want to, and I said, no, what? What? No. Like, and, asking me if I'm okay. Lying, yeah, sure, whatever. And that's over, and my parents are there. My mom and my dad and my little brother all drove to South Carolina. So while I was sleeping for the 14 hours, they drove to South Carolina to pick me up, to pick me and my ex up. And they took my car and they took, my dad's car. And before that, we go back to the Airbnb, clean everything up, throw everything in the trash, put the trash out. I had to look at the aftermath of everything in the Airbnb. So much was broken. My mom, being the clean freak that she is, instantly started sweeping the kitchen, you know, picked up the broken remote pieces off of the floor, threw everything away, tried making the Airbnb look as good as possible, and I still had to get all of my stuff out. And then, yeah, so we did that, and we were driving back to my house. Really long drive. And I was just getting the worst lecture of my freaking life all the way back. And when I got home, I was on a hold, like a psychiatrist. I've never heard of this, and I've been in multiple mental health situations. And this situation was interesting because I was not allowed to leave the house on my own. I had to be monitored by my parents, so my mother and my stepfather. That's where I was staying the majority of the time. I was basically on house arrest, but without the ankle bracelet, with my family. I get home, all of the sharps are gone, all of the knives are gone, and the worst tragedy of them all. I go to my bedroom and I look under my bed because that's where I kept all of my glass pipes for water pipes, if you know what I mean. And I had this this hand blown glass pipe, Rick and Morty themed. Of course, that's just what every stoner needs. I look under my bed, everything's gone. Everything's gone. I had a set of throwing knives that were from my dad. Those were gone. Anything resembling a sharp object was gone. I asked my stepfather for some stupid reason where the things went. He said he locked away my throwing knives and that he threw my glass water pipes, my hand blown, really expensive ones, into the trash can. And I go in the garage and I look in the trash can and they're all just broken in little pieces. I'm assuming he just threw them in there full force. I was very sad. Very sad about that. Even, the situation wasn't really hitting me at that point. I was just like, dang, you threw away some expensive, beautiful pieces. What is wrong with you? And yeah, honestly, and that's when I started journaling in full force. By the way, I don't really journal anymore, but I do write. I am a writer. I call myself a writer. I love to write. I like to write songs. I like to write little excerpts, poems, things like that. Very detailed journal entries, whatever. Research papers. Okay, I'll stop. All for fun. And, just being on basically house arrest just made me start journaling. And then I just got really, really into spirituality and Buddhism after that, and Hinduism, because I needed something to help me. I was in psychosis really bad, and it helped. I was writing a lot, and yeah, and I won't really go on more, but I just want to put some awareness out um for mental illnesses, and I'm just going to go ahead and list all the ones that I have, and a lot of these are from this experience right here. Um Here's a disclaimer for everyone that wants to do psychedelics. Honestly, don't do them. And if you want to do them, I study a lot. Okay, I am going to school for neuropsych. I've been studying neuropsych related things, especially related to psychedelics. And after a lot of my research, people who have these esque disorders or issues cannot do LSD or psilocybin or any psychedelic at all, because it will activate whatever that mental illness is and make it worse. Let me list some of them: bipolar 1 or 2, borderline personality disorder, schizoaffective disorder, just schizophrenia in general, any kind of psychosis related things. You cannot do psilocybin. You cannot do LSD. I repeat, you cannot. I know. Trust me, I know. I have done the research. It has amazing results on the neuroplasticity in the brain and rewiring it to get rid of addiction and PTSD and depression. But the thing is, I'm sorry, you can't do it if you have those things. And I learned my lesson. Trust me. Just to bring awareness, I have PTSD. It's not really severe anymore, which is great. Not just from that, but from a lot of things. I do have borderline personality disorder. Yeah. There's a lot of stigma around that. I have official diagnoses of all of these things. I'm not going to show my papers, but I do have borderline. I do have OCD, and I have the rumination type where it's stuck in my head the majority of the time. I don't really have compulsions. And so, yeah, those are all of the things that I've been officially diagnosed with. Obviously, depression, anxiety. Everybody has depression, anxiety. That's not something that I want, necessarily highlight that I have, because we all struggle with that, right? It's just different levels. I struggle with all those things, and I just want to say that if you feel like psychedelics would help you, here is the message now: that it won't help you, and it can exacerbate. I probably said that wrong. It can worsen all of your symptoms for those disorders. Okay, so like me, who struggle with psychosis and stuff like that, if I were to do psychedelics now, it would make my any psychosis that I deal with, 10 times worse. If I had schizophrenia, it would make the symptoms of my schizophrenia a lot worse. I just want to put out there, because unfortunately, us as a collective, there is people like me that know a lot about, and I am not saying that I'm, whoa, an amazing researcher that knows everything about the effects of all of these different kinds of substances on the brain. No, I have a very good general knowledge, because I took a lot of time to study it, and the main reason is because of all of these things that I've gone through. And I just want to put that awareness out there, because I have encountered a lot of people recently and in the past that say psychedelics really help, and that, everyone should. No. Not everyone should do it. And I always bring that fact up, because I don't care if I sound like a broken record. I don't care that I sound annoying because it can ruin your life. You could possibly die. You could possibly end your life because you decided to do a psychedelic because you were told to or you wanted to or whatever. So, I don't know, just therapy and, medication management. If you don't want to do medication, there's a lot of, non-medication based type therapies that are amazing, and therapy should not be stigmatized. It needs to stop being stigmatized. I know it still is, and I'm going to school for this. Okay, I'm just going to say this because I'm probably going to say it a lot, but I'm going to school. I want to be a DBT therapist. DBT, in my opinion, is one of the best therapy modems out there. Every one of you, yes, you can benefit from dialectical behavioral therapy because it is basically just teaching you emotional regulation. And who doesn't like to learn a little bit of skills on emotional regulation, no matter who you are, right? And then, yeah, I want that to be that, but I also want to study the effects of substances on the brain. So, I feel like neuropsych is perfect for me. And I just want to say my little anecdotal thing here. I know it's a huge dream, but my main dreams are to be in a band, a famous band, big dreams, and I want to do that, and I want to be a creator here to talk to people. I don't care if this reaches one person. I want to be a creator, talk about things. And the main goal is to get my degree, neuropsych, become a researcher, study the effects of different substances on the brain, combined with therapy and non-therapy modems to help with every condition ever that exists. And I know that's a lot. And the main ones that I want to focus on are the ones that we have no quote-unquote cure for, which is things like bipolar, things like borderline personality disorder, things like schizophrenia, right? My goal is to somehow find something that we can all just take, or type of therapy that we can do. I mean, it can't just be a type of therapy because it's brain chemistry, right? I want to find something. I want to be able to honestly cure these things. And I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, I know I'm not the only one out there that wants to do that. And I don't know. And I will keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing for something. And before I die, I will find something. I will get close. If I can get close, that'd be great. And then I could just pass it on to other people, pass my research on. And I'm also very fascinated with Alzheimer's, and I would like to cure Alzheimer's before I die. And I know we already have very, very, very good Alzheimer's prevention methods and things you can do in your day-to-day life to prevent it, but we're not 100% on that. And there are people out there right now struggling with that, and it just makes me so sad. Okay, that cut is going to be very aggressive, but I have to end this video because I'm recording this on my iPhone, and I probably should have just recorded this on a camera, but I don't have a camera, need to buy a camera, whatever. Enough yapping for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. I know it's crazy, and I talked a lot, but that's just what happens when you have story times. But stay tuned for the next crazy... stay tuned for the next story time. And I have a lot of stories, and I have a lot of cool stories that are not super crazy like this one, that are kind of funny. And I kind of just want to keep posting stories just so I can remember them, but also so they're just fun. So thanks for watching. Goodbye.